Hello again. This is Brian Copeland talking. Welcome to another edition of Copeland's Corner. Another distinguished panel of commenters. It just never ends. There's just too much to talk about and too much that's really kind of depressing to talk about. We'll try to make it less depressing, but we'll sort through it. Jann Karam is back, and where are you now? Are you in LA or are you on the road with Dana?
I'm in Los Angeles. I'm in my garden. No,
I'm in
LA. I go on the road a lot. You know, I was just with Dana Carvey. We went to Mesa, Arizona. We did a road gig. That was fun. And anyway, yeah, I'm in LA. Yeah.
Well, good to see you. And Nato Green is here.
Koreatown. What?
South Koreatown. Nato Green is here. This is Nato's first time on this joining us. Welcome. It's a pleasure.
Good to see you. Glad to be here.
And can you be a little less enthusiastic about being here? That's the only thing that I request. I just as many more downers as you can possibly take before
Look,
we start with
Brian, you've already witnessed my entire emotional range.
We're gonna get it out of you.
Yeah,
we'll do the best that we possibly can. And Yayne Ababa, who is one of our contributors here on our expanding Copeland's Corner channel. Welcome. Always a pleasure to have you.
All
right. Well, I guess we'll start with what the biggest news, and that is what they're calling now SignalGate. If you have not heard about this by now, was it yesterday that there was a text thread meeting that took place over the Signal app? Which, by the way, had you guys heard of Signal? I'd never even heard of Signal before this. Had you?
Yeah.
Had you, Nato? Are you familiar with it?
Oh, I use Signal all the time.
All right. So what's the deal?
Is that a dating app?
Sorry. Yeah, so I use Signal for my kink parties when I want my children not to know. No, that's I use like Signal is basically a texting app that is not it's similar to WhatsApp, but the selling point is supposedly that it's more secure, that it has end-to-end encryption, so it's harder for like law enforcement to access stuff that's in your Signal. And so like I've been involved, for example, in like I was involved in a protest of where 650 Jews occupied the Oakland Federal Building calling for a ceasefire. And that was organized heavily on Signal, where people had alias names. People who had previously been vetted were invited to the thing. They had alias names, and it was disappearing messages, so that if like law enforcement got a hold of your phone, they wouldn't have access to your records. So I actually use Signal all the time, and I've used it a lot or like there was one protest where we were on the Golden Gate Bridge and people were coming from either side of the bridge. And so the Signal app was used in the protest to create channels for the people to communicate about what was happening in real time at the protest. So very helpful and useful unless you're one of the biggest idiots of all time. And
we'll get to that in just a moment. And my understanding too is that you can set it so that messages remain for up to 4 weeks, and then after 4 weeks they disappear.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
You can change the settings so you can be like sometimes I'll be like messages will disappear after a week, or messages will disappear after an hour, or messages will disappear never. Like you can set it to how long you want the what duration you want the fade.
There was one I was using a while back, and I cannot think of the name of it, where it was like as soon as it was read, it disappeared. I'm trying to think of the name of what. Yeah, that one. Yeah. Don't we wish? The
word. Oh, no, sorry to interrupt. No, I was just
okay. All right, so go ahead.
Oh God, no, the worst part is it's like, that's bad, not a great idea, but the worst part is, accidentally sending it to.
Let me set it up before you get there. You're getting ahead of the lead here. All right, so here's what happens so there is a thread that is a conversation that included, among others, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, National Security Advisor Michael Waltz, the Vice President J.D. Vance, the director of national security, among several others. And one of the things that one of these nitwits did in this conversation, which was about about a bombing in Yemen that we were going to execute or were scheduled to execute, somebody, and they still have not, at least I have not read as of recording this on Wednesday afternoon, I have not read who it was who's fessing up to having accidentally done this. They included Jeffrey Goldberg of The Atlantic. And at first he says when he saw it, he thought he was being punked. Because here's you got all of these prominent government officials, and they're talking about a bombing and it's national security stuff, and he thought he's being punked. And then he's looking at it, and the more specific it is, the more he realizes, no, he's not being punked. So he just watches. He doesn't participate, doesn't let him know that he's there. He takes screenshots of the entire thing, and they are going into detail about when planes are leaving, about when bombs are dropping, about what the targets are, and it violates several laws. Among them, the law that government records have to be preserved by the National Archives. You're not supposed to be using things like this. Number two is that this is not government secure. There are specific protocols and places and government secure apps for having discussions such as this. So once it comes out that they've done this, of course, the right, they all attack Goldberg. He's a hack. He's a liar. The Atlantic is a failing magazine, and he made all this up, and that there was nothing here that constituted national security because, it's a crime to mishandle national security information. Nothing here, and they just trash him. So basically today he said, all right, fine. And they published it. They released what it was that was it. And of course there's national security stuff. Wow. So, and what's amazing to me is after the crap that they gave Hillary Clinton about a server that meant absolutely nothing, most Republicans are meeting this with a shrug, like it's not that big of a deal. There are some who are saying there needs to be an investigation. There's some who are saying Hegseth must be drunk. He must have been drunk when he set this up.
Right. Yeah.
So my thoughts. I've got a couple of thoughts on this. Number one, do you think that anything's going to be happening? Do you think that there is going to be any kind of government action taken in terms of this at all? Do you think anybody's going to be fired? And number two, how do you think this affects us as far as our allies are concerned? Because if I'm an ally of the United States, if I see that this is the way they handle classified information, I'm sure as hell not going to give them information about things that I'm involved in, that my country's involved in, or planned attacks or strategy or things that we're thinking about. So thoughts. And we lost Nato somewhere. Maybe he dropped his Wi-Fi. We'll see if we get him back. Yayne, I'll start with you. Go ahead.
I think that I don't think Tulsi Gabbard needs to go. I don't think she's going to go because I don't think that Putin wants her to go. That's how I feel about that. I think Pete Hegseth is going to be the first to go. Or someone underneath him or underneath walls is going to be the first to go, because the first thing they tried to do was throw them under the bus, saying, oh, it was one of Walz's assistants who had added Goldberg to the thing, even though Goldberg has receipts that Mike Walz was the one who added him to the chat. So it's going to be someone underneath one of them or Pete Hegseth.
Sorry to interrupt. Isn't part of their whole thing is never to take responsibility or admit accountability? So by doing anything, the lawlessness in which they go forward with everything is part of their MO. So wouldn't that be, then why are they going to admit to one thing and then not the other?
I don't think they'll admit to it. I think they'll say they asked for someone's resignation, someone like underneath, to make it seem like they made a mistake, but that it was fine to use Signal. Because they're already saying, well, it was an attack. It wasn't a war plan. It was an attack. And those aren't the same thing. Not understanding the Signal.
When you're flying over a target and you're dropping bombs, that could be considered an act of war.
Yeah.
All right, let me ask you, Nato, do you think that do you think that a head is going to roll or heads are going to roll as the result of this? Or, Trump was trying to make it out like it's no big, well, he made a mistake and, he's a good guy and he's learned from his mistake and it won't happen again. I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah, I think the central question facing the Republicans is during the signal discussion about the war plans, were any of them masturbating at the time? Because if they were, that's automatic immunity in the Republican world. So I like the idea that they added Jeffrey Goldberg because Mike Waltz was like, looking at the list of people participating in the discussions, it's like, I feel like we need a Jew. So I just feel like it'd be better if there was a Jew in the conversation. And it's, I think the question about whether heads will roll, I think partly it's like, the Republicans are so much more persistent about making things a story that aren't a story. Like people believe that Democrats tried to defund the police after George Floyd when Democrats actually did the opposite of that. But because the lie was repeated so many times, people fell for it. And so it's like, will heads roll? Partly it depends on, are Democrats going to fumble the opportunity created by a huge national security breach? Probably.
Yeah.
And, like if Democrats went after it, in a rigorous and aggressive way, there would be serious consequences to it. I also want to take a moment to pour one out for the people of Yemen who got bombed, by the way. To be clear, it's a procedural problem that they accidentally added a reporter to what should have been a secure discussion about military strategy, and the Democratic defense is like, we would bomb innocent civilians in the Middle East in a much more respectable and professional manner. That's sort of the Democratic position.
Yeah. So like you're burying the lead, right?
Right. The lead is, why are you bombing these people? How about don't do that?
Yeah, right. But that's not being addressed. Again, it's getting covered by this stuff, or covered up by it.
Now what tickles me, here's the thing that tickles me about this whole thing, and I shouldn't say tickle because the fact that people did die and American lives were potentially put at risk by this breach in security, because they shouldn't have been using this to begin with. They should not have been using this app to begin with. And that is that for the past 2 months, if it rained, it was because of DEI. If anything happened where a black person or a woman or a person of color happened to walk by some place where a disaster or something took place, it was because they were not qualified to be there because of DEI. Well, you look at the pictures of all the people involved in this conversation, and guess what? It's all white people. So it just kills me the fact that he tries to claim that all white people are in any position are there because they're qualified. All white men especially are there solely because of their qualifications and their hard work. But if you were a woman or if you were a person of color and you were there, you are not qualified to be there. You're only there because of DEI. And then you look at this.
And then you look at
this.
Yeah. Right.
Brian,
they're not fallible thing, because inherently they're saying that unless you are a straight white Christian man, you are not qualified to do anything. That just being those things immediately makes you more qualified than anyone else, right? That's basically what they say when they bring up DEI. DEI is the new N word for them. And even though I thought it stood for Donald Jr., Eric, and Ivanka, but what do I know? But yeah, for them, they're never going to accept, like you said, they're never going to accept Jann's responsibility because it doesn't fit that narrative of them being the most qualified because they are white men.
Yeah.
So, as the only white man in the chat, let me just, I think that you're missing something important about DEI, which is that it's about only having access for white heterosexual men, and the white men on the chat, on this signal chat, making these decisions were the best, most qualified white men that they could find. So it only gets worse from here.
Yeah. Totally.
I don't know how to respond to that. I mean, there's nobody he's appointed to anything who the sycophantic Republicans in the Senate have not rolled over and confirmed that has been qualified or up to the task. I mean, for God's sake.
They're appointing George Zimmerman to be head of ATF before this is over.
I don't know. He's half Latino, so.
Oh, right. My bad.
Yeah.
Well, I will tell you another thing. You know, I think I'm going off topic just a little bit. That's got me just scared as hell, and that is I took the most recent COVID shot day before yesterday. I try to stay up on top of it, and every year there is a meeting in, I believe it's in January, either late January or early February, the CDC has, where they get their best and their brightest, all the top scientists and those who work with viruses and whatnot, and they try to determine what the strain of flu is going to be that's going to hit us come flu season. And once they determine that, then they get to work on developing a vaccine to vaccinate people from that flu. Well, now, for the first time in something like 30 plus years, that meeting was canceled. I mean, flat out, not postponed.
Yeah.
It was canceled, which means that there is not, unless there's some drastic change quickly to give them time to work on and to develop a vaccine, there won't be a flu vaccine come next fall, which means you're going to see a lot of old people die. You're going to see a lot of babies and young people who are too young to get the flu vaccine die. And I look at this and I'm thinking, what could possibly be your motivation for this? What could possibly be your reasoning behind this?
According to the people in my comments on TikTok, they want to replace us all.
The experts.
Yes, the experts. They want to replace us all with Elon's robots. We're not necessary anymore. They don't need us.
They don't care.
Okay, but replace. How are you replacing old people?
That's where we are.
Okay, but how are you? But the most vulnerable people are old people who are already mostly past their working age. So you're not going to replace old people with robots, or babies who are too young to be vaccinated. So you're not going to replace them with robots. Yeah,
but the cruelty is the point, right? The cruelty is the point. Their arrogance and their thinking they know what's best while living in Delulu land. That's the issue here. Like, they are the guy. They are the people in my comments on TikTok. Like, I'm not, and people will watch this podcast and follow me on TikTok. I'm not saying all of you, but there are people who come in my comments who talk about how, like, they're trying to get a lizard person out of their life and they don't know how and they need my help doing it. And I'm like, okay, block. But, like, they are those people and they are in charge of the government. They are the ones who talk about the extraterrestrials and the lizard people and all. They embrace any conspiracy theory that you give them. They are like, that totally makes sense. And they are running our government right now.
I wish that I had stock in tinfoil hats. I really do.
Right.
I really, truly do. I was looking at an article today. I don't know if you ever look at NJ.com, which is the New Jersey paper. And come to find out, because they're one of the few papers that's really standing up, or publications really standing up to Trump. Their readership now online is in the tens of millions. I had no idea that they had a readership like that. And there is an an op-ed piece written by a female journalist whose name I do not have written down here, who talks about the fact that you have all of these MAGA people who are really being hurt. I mean, really being hurt by these policies in a big way. You know, we're talking about farmers. We're talking about potential cuts to Medicaid. There was one woman in West Virginia who went for, West Virginia went 80% or something for Trump. And in her town in West Virginia, something like half of the people are on Medicaid. And she says if Medicaid's cut, she will literally be homeless within a week to a week and a half. And and she mentioned several. This journalist mentioned several of these stories, all red state stories, where these people are really, really going to be in a world of hurt based upon the policies of the man that they voted for. And she asked the question whether or not we should, one, have sympathy for them, and two, try to somehow bring them into the fold of the rational thinking people. And I consider myself generally, I mean, I get angry, I have people I don't like, but I generally like to think of myself as being an open-minded, kind-hearted person at the end of the day, and I don't. I don't have any sympathy for them. I just don't.
Brian, before we get too far from this, I just, based on your remarks, I just want to acknowledge I opened up the front page of NJ.com, and what is on the front page right this moment is a story about the North Bergen police chief pooping next to his desk at the police station.
Let me open that.
So that's a good story.
That's what they're leading with.
That's what they're leading with. Is the police chief pooped next to his desk?
And does it say why he pooped next to his desk?
I think that specific article might be paywalled.
Wait.
Oh, okay.
Maybe there was a toilet paper shortage, like during COVID. We all poop places we didn't want to poop during COVID.
It's really good. I'm gonna when Nico's done, I'm gonna tell you.
By Akron. Oh, sorry. Oh, you were going to say that.
The police chief, the soon-to-be former police chief of Bergen, New Jersey. But going back to the question, because I'm seeing a lot over the course of the last 3 weeks, and I've talked about this a little bit over the last 3 podcasts, because there's more and more every week. I see more and more and more of it. I see people who will admit I voted for Trump, but I didn't vote for this. And the subtext being, yeah, I knew he was going to hurt people, but I didn't know that included me. Oh, I knew there were going to be people who were going to have things taken away from them or going to lose their jobs, but I thought he meant those people. I thought he meant the people who I hate. I didn't know. One woman claims that she lost her job at USAID because she was she voted for Trump 3 times, but she was one of the innocent bystanders who got hurt.
At USAID?
I'm sorry?
You said she worked at USAID?
Yeah.
Okay.
Am I wrong? Am I wrong? My acronym? Did I misspeak?
No. You're right. I find it fascinating that she worked there and voted for Trump. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah. She voted. She voted for Trump 3 times. She said, and calls herself an innocent bystander because her job was eliminated. And it's basically, we have to do something. We have to do better. Wait a minute. We have to do something now because it's you. If it weren't you and it were the black worker or the female worker or the Latino worker who happened to have the desk next to yours, would you be saying that what Elon Musk is doing is a great thing? Or would you still be saying that we need to do better? I just don't have any sympathy. You did not, there's no way you didn't know this was happening. We warned you. You were told over and over and over again, read the 2025 project, read it. And he's going right down claimed he had never heard of it. Never mind the fact that all the people who are working for him and part of his administration wrote the damn thing. He claimed he'd never heard of it. And he's going right down the list. One thing after another. So no, I do not. Other than the fact that that there are innocent people who didn't vote for this who are being hurt, I have no sympathy for you because you lost your job, and you lost your job as a direct result of the actions of the man you voted for. No, I don't have any sympathy, and I know that sounds cold-hearted. It sounds cruel, but not as cruel as rounding up people who are U.S. citizens in some cases, claiming that they're part of some gang and sending them to a concentration camp in El Salvador without due process. No, I don't. I just don't. Now tell me, am I cruel? Does that mean I'm cruel and I'm heartless because that's how I feel about this?
No, you're an empath. It's clear. It's just, look what we're involved in now. And how could you feel sorry for people? I mean, they were hoodwinked, right? But they decided to go along with all the propaganda and all the the indoctrination of all this, that, you know, from how long Fox News has been and all the spin on everything, they decided not to look further into it and kind of do more critical thinking. So why do you feel sorry for they made that choice, you know?
And I'll even give you a pass. For 2016, I'll give you a pass. Because in spite of everything we knew, you still didn't know how bad it could be. You know, so 2026, I'm even willing to give you a pass. But there's no excuse. If I stick my tongue in a light socket and I get you know, shot across the room by the electricity, okay, once, twice, I'm an idiot. If I do it a second time, I'm an idiot. And a third time, it's just, you know, there's just no hope for me.
Exactly.
If I do it a third time.
I have bad news, which is that some people are idiots. Like that's in the nature of a democracy with 300 million people, the idiots can do a lot of damage, and it's sort of, I kind of like, the people keep talking about the leopards eating faces thing. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It's like in 2016 there was this like tweet at the time that I think that went viral about but I didn't expect the leopards to eat my face, says crying woman who had voted for the leopards eating faces party. And so, you know, it's just like like how do you balance, you know, on the one hand there is some amount of enjoyment in watching people, the leopards eating people's faces who had voted for them. I don't
enjoy it. I want to be clear. I don't enjoy it. I just don't have sympathy.
Yeah.
Oh, I enjoy it.
You're enjoying it.
I mean, I go back and forth. I go back and forth between enjoying it and being like, okay, but we actually need to. You know, sometimes I think we need to do something with these people, or at least like at the point that people are ready to be receptive to a different kind. People's politics change, right? And people's politics change based on their conditions, and you know, and so it's entirely possible that at some point, some of those people will wake up, and not all of them, but some of them will be like, wait a minute, this was a horrible idea, and I want to start changing. You know, none of us have the politics that we have today our entire lives. We all had to learn through some process. Somebody pulled my sleeve at some point and said, hey, would you stop being a jackass in these 4 ways, right? And then I figured out which 3 of the 4 ways I could live with doing. And then continue to be a jackass in the other way. So, you know, like that's part of growth as a person. You want to allow the possibility that people can grow, and we need to figure out what does it take politically to be able to win and construct a different kind of politics. I suspect that that you know, there were more people who didn't vote than voted for Trump, and I suspect that those are the people that need to be addressed the most, and those are the people.
Or Biden,
right? Yeah. That, you know, Trump won not because people are so excited about Trump, but Trump won because the Democratic vote collapsed, and that like there's no getting out of this without figuring out how to solve that problem.
Well, I think some of the issues on that are that the Republicans were very successful in purging voter rolls, in voter suppression, in making it difficult where mostly Democrats vote for those Democrats to vote. There was a lot of there was a whole study, I forgot the guy's name, that was just released recently about how if the Republicans had not purged so many voter rolls and suppressed votes and gerrymandered and done something else, that Kamala would have won. So they were successful in that campaign. So there are people who are like, my vote wasn't recorded. I'm looking it up and my vote wasn't recorded after the fact. So, which means that they were purged from the voter roll, right? Because they were going, and actively in swing states, the Republicans were going to court and contesting people's voter registration and having them purged from the voter roll.
Well, did you see what the executive order that was signed yesterday?
Yes.
Trump signed an executive order yesterday that would require people to prove their citizenship to vote. Now, I was born, I have lived in the United States my entire life since birth. How the hell do I prove, unless I have my passport, you know, that I bring to the polls, how in the world do I prove my citizenship?
You have to, so I live in a voter ID state now, right? I live in Tennessee. So when I registered to vote, I had to go to the voter registration office and show them my social security card and my ID. and swear that I was born.
Both
in
of
the
which you
United
can fake. Both of which can easily be
Yeah,
faked.
but your social security number, like they have a database, they can check all that stuff. They know who you are. But like your social security number shows like you have a different social security number if you're a resident versus a citizen. So they're saying you have to bring your birth certificate to register to vote, and the name on your ID and your birth certificate have to be the same, or you're not able to register. So who's not able to register? Married women, trans people, older people. Some people in this country were born in rural areas where they just wrote their name in the front of a Bible because they didn't have access to a county clerk. This day, like
that's right.
So it's like married women aren't going to be able to register to vote because their ID name doesn't match their birth certificate name.
Married women who didn't take their husband's name, and there are more and more of those every year.
Yeah, those women.
That's a demographic that goes every year.
Yeah, but if they took their husband's name, they're not going to be able to register. It's going to affect military who are deployed abroad, right? How are they going to get all of that information together to register and prove it with their birth certificate? But I got a voter ID card. So I can take my voter ID card to the voting place. I just bring my driver's license usually. Now they're not taking my driver's license anymore because it's not a real ID. So I have to go get a real ID. So then I can take my passport. And like, they're doing all of this on purpose because there are people who can't afford to get your birth certificate. It's $20, right? In San Francisco, it's $25. And then to go get your ID, that's another $20-something. I don't know how much it is in California now, but like here in Tennessee, it's $20-something. If you want to get a passport, that's $167, and you need your birth certificate to get your passport. So you can't you can't get a passport without. It's like you need all these things that cost all this money. Or an
old passport, or an expired passport. If you bring in your old passport, you can do that in lieu of a birth certificate.
But they just make it really difficult. They make it very difficult.
Yeah. It's intentional because they want certain people not to vote, and it's poor people, and they believe that most of the poor people in America are people of color because they don't do demographic research, so they don't realize that people are white people, but they think they're suppressing the Democratic vote by doing this. They're saying it's 1 in 10 people does not have the resources to get the documents they need to register to vote. So, and then the vote
is this constitutional? I can't see how this executive order is even constitutional.
It isn't. Because the federal government can't mandate states to do. The states are in charge of their own election process.
That is correct.
So he can't do that. But it doesn't matter. He thinks he's like making proclamations, right?
Yeah.
He's King Trump. So he's like, I proclaim, and then he's like,
the Meister Burger. I'm outlawing all toys in Wonderland.
That executive orders can't go into law if they're unconstitutional. Like this birthright thing, he doesn't understand that he can't do it because he wants to do it. He doesn't. Yeah.
Unless the Supreme Court says it can. And we have no idea what the Supreme Court's going to do.
Look at what they're doing with these undocumented people that they're shipping off to a concentration camp in El Salvador. And that deal that Rubio made at the beginning of him becoming Secretary of State, the first thing he did was fly to El Salvador to make this arrangement with the president of El Salvador. And when they announced it to the press, they said they will be housing undocumented people that we deport and Americans. Think about that.
And we don't even have the names. We do not have even the names of the people who've been taken. No. We don't know the names of people who've been taken. There have been some people who have popped up who are natural born citizens of certain ethnicity who have been swept up and sent to those concentration camps. I mean, think about this is 2025 in America, and we're talking about sending people to concentration camps, and people still don't see the parallel. People still don't see the parallel.
I'm trying to remember. What is they keep describing it as a deportation, but as I understand it, they took people who were in the United States and sent them to a third country to do forced labor, stealing people from their homes and sending them to do forced labor. Is there a word for that?
Like,
Is there a word in our language? Because I'm not sure that the word is deportation.
My ancestors, hold on.
Yeah.
It's slavery.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. You're right. That's good. Yeah.
Let me throw this in as well. So Trump said yesterday on a talk show that there is talk in the government about paying reparations / compensation to the victims who were incarcerated for January 6th.
Are there any left?
Yeah.
Like they keep doing other things and going back to jail for other things, or like having shootouts with the police and getting unalived, and like, are there any left?
Enough. He let 1,600 out there. There are enough. I mean, if there's one that's getting my tax dollars for trying to overthrow my government, that's one too many.
Yeah.
But the very fact that they're talking about this, that they want to take away services from the poor, but these thugs and thugs and white supremacists and Proud Boys and everybody else that try to overthrow our democracy, let's take American taxpayers' money and compensate them for trying to overthrow our democracy. And then in the next breath, saying that people who vandalize Tesla dealerships should serve 20 years in prison.
Yeah. Well, he said that they protested. It was they protested peacefully and patriotically, and a lot of people liked the people that were there. So they're fine people. So
I guess, Nato, the protests that you and I have done are the terrorist ones, the ones where we were actually peaceful and
right.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the stories I saw right before we came on is there was a protest yesterday, a peaceful protest in front of the Tesla dealership in West Palm Beach, Florida, and it was mostly seniors, mostly older people, senior citizens, and a 44-year-old man drove an SUV into that crowd.
He was an employee of the dealership.
Was he an employee of the dealership? Well, fortunately, no one was hurt. A couple of the seniors almost got clipped, but nobody was hurt. He was arrested. He's being held without bail. So my question is, do you think that this is going to escalate, that we're going to see a point where this ends up being a Charlottesville, where there ends up being violence in front of Tesla dealerships over these protests?
I mean, I think political violence is is increasing and almost guaranteed. So the question of like how random or organized or state sponsored it is the open question. I will say, if the January 6th insurrectionists get reparations before Black people do,
thank you.
Y'all better not take that sitting down.
Or we should try to overthrow the government. One of the two. So apparently it's the fastest way.
At this point,
Black people should overthrow the government at that point.
At this point, there's some of us who happen to be Black who just give us an island and leave us the fuck alone. Like, sorry.
They did. It's called Liberia. They tried that.
Yeah, but they're messing with Liberia. We need a new one, because I mean, that whole thing where they misunderstood the federal EO that he did about federal contracts for segregated workplaces. And so everyone thought that he's bringing back segregation to the whole country. Some people were like, oh, that's cool. Like, first of all, it never went away. And second of all, like, that's great. You know what I mean? Like, just give us an island, leave us alone. That'll be our reparations. Give us an island and leave us alone. We'll try.
Why should I have to leave my country? Why should I have to leave my country that I worked so hard, that I've spent my entire life working twice as hard as the white person sitting next to me in school or wherever else to get half as far and busted my ass? Why should I have to run out of my own country?
Yeah.
And I refuse to do that. I'm going to shift gears for a second while we're talking about Tesla, and I'm going to ask you for your advice. Okay, and I'm going to ask all of you to impart, and I'm asking for serious advice. And if you disagree with my position, that's fine. I have a right now. You see what's going on with Tesla. There are protests. There's vandalism. There are people who are having their Tesla cars trashed and keyed, and everything else is going on with it. I have a family member, a nephew. I'm not going to say who his name is, and I know that he listens. Who has had a number of jobs being the live person in self-driving cars. because there have been several metropolitan areas around the country, including San Francisco, where for a couple of years, a lot of people don't know it. They have been test driving self-driving cars all over the place. And one of the protocols is you have to have a live human being or two inside the self-driving car. Well, my nephew has had 2 interviews with Tesla because they're desperate for people to sit in the car in their self-driving cars. And I'm going, don't do this. Find another company. You do not want to be driving around in a Tesla right now. You do not want to be driving around in a Tesla right now. It's dangerous and it's going to get worse. I read their stock has plunged from $500 at the beginning of the year to $283.75 as of this morning. Tesla you might as well be wearing a hood, carrying a torch is how some people look at it. So I am telling him that I think it is a bad idea and that it's dangerous. And number one, am I right or am I wrong? Or just, I wouldn't even ask you if I'm right or wrong. What would you say to him? If you say, go for it, go ahead and do it, that's fine. But what advice, we'll go one by one, and I'm going to start with you, Yayne. What would you tell my nephew who's looking at this job? He's been past 2 interviews.
Not even like with the people like vandalizing Teslas, but just because it's track record of like people dying when using the self-driving mode, I would tell him not to do it. Like Tesla's had all those problems. I don't know. There's like, here is like mega Cybertruck wonderland. I see them everywhere. And I haven't seen a single vandalized one. I see people flipping them off all the time. But I mean, even with the idea that people are vandalizing them out of anger, but it's just the recall issues that they've had. I mean, wasn't it, I don't know if you guys remember, like, wasn't it in one of the tunnels in the Bay Area where the guy self-driving car, he used the Tesla self-driving mode and it crashed and it caused like all these people to die? It was like a huge accident.
I don't think that was a 10. There were like 3 or 4. There were like 3 or 4 in San Francisco. Waymo's one that's running around. I'm not saying it's Waymo before I get sued. I don't remember exactly who it was, but I don't recall it being a Tesla. I could be wrong, but there are like 3 or 4 companies that have been given the right to do that. All right, let's go. All right, so what would you tell them?
The self-driving issue, just the safety because of how bad their cars are. Not even because of I would tell him not to do it because of how faulty their vehicles are, allegedly.
Okay, Jann?
Yeah, I agree with that it doesn't seem like a safe, it's kind of scary, with the things that go wrong with being a part of the testing of it. And then politically, I maybe just find something else where it's not so explosive or volatile. Of a opportunity, he can find something, unless he's like standing up for it and says, I'm going to do this no matter what. And he really believes in it. And that's why he wants to do it. But it's
he doesn't. He's got experience in that job. He's got like 3 or 4 years experience with various companies sitting in the car, which I would not have the guts to do, sitting in a car that I have no control over.
What about the Waymo? Aren't they hiring?
He's been there. I know that he's been there.
I feel sorry for the self-driving cars. They just seem lonely. I saw one car, a Waymo's, just stuck at a yellow, waiting for the pedestrian. Already went. It was there for like 10 minutes, and it was sad. Anyway, that's just a funny little thing. But okay, feel sorry for
Nato, your thoughts.
But so maybe if he wants to keep them company, I guess.
I think that there's a key.
No, I say no.
There's a key follow-up question that I need to ask before I respond.
Okay.
Which is your nephew a Nazi?
No. Not a lot of black Nazis I'm aware of other than Kanye. No.
Yeah. So if he's not a Nazi, I'm also on the side of no. Look, get a job at the library. The number one, the best use case for self-driving cars is self-driving car based pornography. Get your Waymo on. You know what I mean? Like, they have cameras in the car. No one's there. The cameras will film you.
Oh, you're saying he should get an OnlyFans account and start a niche?
Yeah. Just. I think he could just pivot to porn directly and cut out the middleman. of going through the like dalliance with Tesla, and make more money and be more fulfilled.
Yeah.
Would any of you drive if Tesla came to you and said, I will give you the Tesla model of your choice 100% free, but it's the only vehicle you're allowed to drive for the next 2 years, would you take it?
No,
No.
I like my car. And also there's been 736 crashes, 17 fatalities with Teslas since 2019 because of the autopilot feature.
Okay, now how does that compare to the other self-driving cars like Waymo, and there are a couple others?
Well,
I mean,
I'm just talking about I'm just talking about the autopilot feature on Tesla. Let's find out. I will Google it.
Okay, Jan,
But
would you
no,
take the
I
car?
wouldn't
No.
take No, I wouldn't take a free car. I've made it this far without making any kind of compromises. I'm not going to do it now.
Good for you. NATO?
No,
NATO's thinking about it.
no, I'll ride a bike. I'll take the bus. I like the bus.
Don't go crazy.
But a self-driving bus?
No, thank you. I like a bus.
I had to drive the
And
bus
you live
until I
in
was
San Francisco,
till the day I turned 16 and got my license. I rode the bus, and I said I'm never getting on a bus again, and I haven't.
I live in LA, and it's like when it's not a lot of unhoused people, and I get in there and I say, I wanted to go green, not yellow, because it really smells. Yeah. But I mean, it's
Oh
fine.
my goodness. Okay, where else are we?
We're waiting for
Okay.
Google, right? Okay.
All
I
right,
mean,
I was
the thing, one thing about the accidents because of the self-driving feature compared to other cars, it's like if I get in a that it gets to this question of liability. Like our whole legal system is based on the idea of personal liability. If I'm in a
Right.
car crash and I'm the driver, I have liability. If
Right.
there's a self-driving car or self-driving function is in a car crash, the liability should be with the programmer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you would
Hmm.
assume, yeah.
So, right. You can't have a situation where no one is responsible if, someone gets run over by a car.
Yeah, we'll let them try that. I mean, they'll get sued. Believe me, they'll get sued.
There was
Because the
that.
fact in the car you can sign a waiver if you're the person who is the human in the car. You can sign some kind of a waiver that probably still won't hold up in court. But if you're just a guy crossing the street and you get hit by one of these cars, they're not protected. You can't sue, so that's not an issue. Yanni, you were going to say you found something else?
Oh yeah. So there's been over 3,000 since 2019 accidents with autonomous vehicles.
Is this nationwide or is this just in San Francisco?
Nationwide.
Nationwide, there's been 3,000. How many fatal accidents? Or does it say?
Sorry, I was going to the next thing. Who's liable for an accident?
Oh, okay.
Forget it. You can research later. Get back into the conversation. Research later. I've got all right. Something else before we run out of time. I want to throw up. I do want to throw up a lot. I'm just misspeaking. I'm misspeaking left and right. What else are
you gonna do? What'd you say?
Left and right. Okay. Quick question. And I'll start with you this time, NATO, and we'll go around. How old were you when you got your first job that had withholdings, where they took taxes out, Social Security, and taxes and whatnot? How old were you? Also, I was 15, lying about my age, saying that I was 16. Job was phone soliciting, bothering people at home trying to sell stuff. I lied about my age, said that I was 15. I was 16. I was only 15. So that's when they started taking out for me. Do you remember yours?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I know definitely by 16, I was working construction in the summer and getting a paycheck with withholdings. But before that, I worked at a video store and I worked at a synagogue and I worked at a childcare center. But I actually don't remember if I got paid withholdings or got paid
cash out of the table,
purely in cocaine. So I'm drawing a blank on that.
We'll say 16. Jan, you remember yours?
Yes, I believe I was 15. I lied about being 16, and I worked at the Hamburger King in Superior, Arizona. So that was
Hamburger King.
I believe they took out. I believe that's the Hamburger King. Mhm.
Okay, Yayne?
I was 15 and a half. So my mother owned a sporting goods store in the Haight-Ashbury. And so up until 15, I worked there for allowance. And then she put me on payroll once she could get a work permit where I could actually have a paycheck. And so I was just before I turned 16, actually, I started having like getting a legit paid check where they would take taxes out.
Okay,
Before
so
that,
between
allowance and sneakers.
Okay, so between the four of us, without giving away any ages, we have individually been paying into Social Security literally for decades. So since we've been paying into Social Security, they've been taking it out. We had no say. We had no choice in the matter. We got our check, and Social Security tax was taken out of our paycheck, even as teenagers. Do you get as pissed off as I do when you hear Social Security referred to as an entitlement?
Yeah.
It's our money. It's not an entitlement. It's like they're putting it away for a rainy day, but it's our money. It's not an entitlement. They're calling it an entitlement because they want to go gamble with our money and they want to justify it.
Yeah.
They want to just rip us off, but it's our money.
They call it entitlement so that they mischaracterize it so they can cut it. So that way they can say, oh, it's entitlement. Let's cut it, but it's not.
I mean,
it's like our money.
it's also the in Social Security is like the most successful anti-poverty program in American history. So it's partly they want to be able to gamble with our money, and partly they want people to be more desperate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if they my parents that were public school teachers and they're retired, and there was this rule for years where public school teachers, because they got a pension, didn't also get Social Security, and so like that was changed, and so my mom lives in affordable housing in Colorado and just got this, like, there was this windfall elimination rule that started under Biden, but she just got the check from Social Security and it like changes her ability to pay her rent every month. You know what I mean? And so, and like live with dignity and to be able to have Social Security benefits. So it's really like, I think partly it's about wanting to loot the money, but partly a lot it's about wanting working people to be more desperate and vulnerable and precarious so that people can't organize and push back.
And well, also when you look at the stories, the Depression era stories before FDR and before Social Security was created, how seniors lived, how seniors just, you couldn't work anymore to make any more money unless you were well off or you had family members who had money who could afford to take care of you. You just died. You starved to death. You froze to death. Whatever. And why in the world we would want to go backwards? I mean, they've wanted their hands on Social Security. I mean, since the beginning. I mean, there are people who've hated FDR's guts. I mean, when I was growing up, I'd hear about people who this is 30 years past FDR, who just talked about him like he was the devil because of how he destroyed America with the New Deal. And why in the world you would want to go back to putting senior citizens in that kind of precarious position? And again, the thing that pisses me off is I'll tell you, I'm 60. I turned 60 years old last year. I turned 60 last April. And now that I'm, 67 and a half is when you could collect it. And not that I've ever counted on it. Now we want to get rid of it after I've been paying into it since I was 15. Now just give me back what I paid into it. No interest. Just give me back what I paid. Just give me my own money back that I paid into it, and I'll shut up.
Really?
Nobody's going to contradict me on that. Good, I like that. I like conversations.
No, you're right. It's all part of the whole criminality of the whole thing. It's so much injustice and madness and lawlessness and changing everything and throwing us at, and cutting programs and making everybody, like you said, NATO destitute, poor, destitute, impoverished, breaking everybody down, building up the elite, and then nobody can fight. That's how you do it, right? How you do the
People will work for nothing, basically, in order to just get crumbs.
Mm-hmm.
We're out of town, so we're out of time. So I'm going to end with this. This is a story you may have heard of. I don't know how in the hell I missed this. I was reading an article about how old the leadership is in Washington. There have been a number of articles after, you know, Chuck Schumer rolled over on the budget on the budget deal, and about, you know, while he's done some good things, he's old. I love Nancy Pelosi dearly, but Nancy Pelosi, it's time to step down. Dianne Feinstein, I adore and voted for her every single time that she ran, but Dianne Feinstein needed to step down. You know, Chuck Grassley, and you talk about Mitch McConnell and people who were in their 80s. Who are holding office. Had you guys heard the Kay Granger story? I'd never heard the Kay Granger story. Had you heard this story? If you're not familiar, I'd never heard of her before. Kay Granger was the mayor of Austin, Texas, and she was elected to Congress, and she served something like 10 terms. And so going back about 18 months to 2 years ago, she missed a bunch of votes. She didn't show up for 6 months. Apparently, she didn't show up to Capitol Hill for 6 months, and apparently either they were covering up or they didn't miss her. And come to find out, she was living in a rest home for people with dementia while holding on to her congressional seat. And once
getting something $1,000 a year for it,
and getting paid, and a benefit, whatever they pay for the house. So it was something like, I want to say it was 6 months. It might have been longer before the public found out what had been going on, because her own constituents weren't being represented. You know, she wasn't there to vote for them. But I mean, the fact that you can literally live in a home for people with dementia and not give up your seat in the House of Representatives. There's something seriously wrong with this with this system. There is some, or then again, you can make the argument, well, at least she couldn't cause any more harm. You could make that argument.
Yeah.
So none of you had not heard the story. I had not heard the story.
I heard the story, and my immediate thought was, one, okay, so she was collecting that $174,000 a year salary the whole time, right? She's guaranteed the health care that they're trying to take away from the everyday American
For life.
And for life. And two, like, there's too many old people in Congress. I'm not an ageist, but if you have dementia, you can't make decisions that are going to impact all of the Americans.
But they're also institutionalists. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's it.
You were saying they're institutionalists. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, right. So they're backward and they're behind in their thinking. I mean, at least Chuck Schumer, if he changed his glasses, it would give us hope. Like those.
If he pushed his glasses up to his eyes,
put him up, push him up, give us hope.
We will win.
We will win with you get new glasses.
That was so pathetic. Oh my God.
All.
I think it's incredibly selfish that these people hold on to these seats. They're completely out of touch with what's going on in the world today. They're making decisions that are going to ruin future generations. I believe that I'm only here for a limited amount of time. I'm just borrowing space, and that the future, there need to be Gen Zs and millennials and all of that in Congress making decisions for their future, because the people in there now are making decisions, in my opinion, for special interests and not for the American people.
I mean, one of the articles I read had some congressional aide who refused to name the congressperson they were working for, who's a congressperson who's older, who they had to explain that there was a camera on their phone. They didn't know that there was a camera on their phone that they could use to take pictures.
That's
yeah,
right.
I mean, I think even, like, I mean, to your point, Brian, like, beyond, you know, it's like, yeah, are they out of touch? Yes. Are they in touch with their constituents? No. Like, but do they, you know, even beyond that, it's like, you know, these are people who, you know, like my aunt who, like, will, you know, text message me, "Dear NATO," the message, "Love Auntie." Like, you know what I mean? Like, if they don't know some basic things about texting format, how are they possibly going to be able to have a hearing over how to regulate the use of generative AI? You know what I mean? Like, they're just
but that's a bad example. That's a bad example, because I do that, and I know that that they know who it's from. I know at the bottom I've got a signature, but to people who I'm close to, I still, like my kids and whatnot, I still do that.
And you're, because you're 60 and you're an old man. And so maybe I'm not saying
hate
you
you.
deserve to. I'm not saying you deserve to die. I'm just saying you might not be the best person to regulate the cutting edge of technology.
All right, maybe I might not.
Yeah.
Can you show me how?
You're
Well, we'll
with
talk
it,
about it.
but
I and Yayne had to show me how to use TikTok last week, so there you go. All right, well, we're out of time. Nato, anything you want to plug? Anything coming up?
Sure. I'm on tour a bit. So Sunday, March 30th, I'll be headlining in Brooklyn, New York. Friday, April 4th, Cambridge, Mass. Saturday, April 19th in Chicago, and then back to our beloved Throckmorton Theater in Mill Valley, April 22nd.
All right, Jann, where you at? Where are you? I
But-
should say. You shouldn't end it with a
yeah,
preposition.
where are you at? Where are you at? Where are you
Where you be
staying?
at? Let me ask you this: where you be at?
Well, I wanted to do your show at that Performing Arts Center, but then it,
Well, that's inside baseball. We'll talk about it later. We'll see if we
I
work
know,
something
but
out.
let's just say I could be there in May, and then anyway, let's see. This weekend. I'm at the Comedy Chateau tomorrow night, and then this weekend, and then I'm going to be at the Throckmorton in July with my friend Leslie Norris, who has the Boomer Broad. So we're doing a NorCal tour and all that. I'm not a Boomer Broad, but she has this. I'm kidding. She has this group. So yeah, doing lots of stand up. And you can follow.
Let's talk about the Throckmorton. The Throckmorton's is in Mill Valley, California, by the way, for those who don't know.
The Throckmorton in Mill Valley, California. You can follow me on Instagram, Jann Karam Comedian. Thank you.
All right. And Yayne, you're doing stuff for us. At least three commentaries a week. You can catch her on the Copeland's Corner channel and here on YouTube. And what else you got going?
Raging on
your butt off on this.
Raging on TikTok until they ban me or they shut the app down. So
okay, well, when you put together a new set, come out here and do one of my shows.
okay, I'd love to.
I'm gonna harp on you to put together a new set because you're very funny.
I'm actually gonna get my butt back on stage actually next week. I haven't done, and I haven't been on stage since in 5 years.
Just before the shutdown.
Yeah.
Well, I'd say you're about due. So right. So work it out. Let me know when you're ready, and I'll put you on one of my shows.
Okay.
Okay.
Got the glasses.
Look, Diana, your Seinfeld jokes will always be timely. You don't need to write a new set.
So I bid him. And boy, are my arms tired. Nato Green, Jann Karam, Yayne Ababa, thanks. Always a pleasure having you guys. I appreciate it. And I'd say always a pleasure, Nato. Come back. This was your first time. It was great having you, man.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Bye-bye. Bye, Brian.
That's going to do it for us this week. I will check you out next week at the same time. A couple of things you can do if you would like to support us, and that is if you are watching, it would help us out a lot if you would subscribe. Costs you absolutely nothing. Please do subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. If you are listening, go to wherever it is that you are listening to us, go to your podcast provider, give us a 5-star review that helps people to find the show. So I'll check you out next week. Until then, be kind to your neighbor. Keep the faith. Keep the faith. That's all I'm going to say this week. Keep the faith. We will somehow, if he doesn't kill us all, we will somehow get through this.